Good evening, Simon here, Explosive Action. You can see this pile. I've got 23 CDs of death and black metal, all from Morbid Chapel Records. So let's get into it. Back at the start of March, I was reached out to by Waldemar from Morbid Chapel Records. He asked if I would like to take a look at, or listen to, rather, some of the titles from Morbid Chapel. I said, of course, I would be very interested in listening to the titles that you've got to send me. I was familiar with the label already. I have a Warflurch demos compilation that they put out, and a Seraphic Entombment cassette that was put out some time ago as well. But I have here 23 CDs that are quite a sporadic mix of death metal, black metal, death doom, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to take a quick talk through on all of them here. Obviously 23 CDs. I can't speak forever, but let's get into it. First up we have Koffin with a K. This is Koffin's nailed into the coffin. Koffin with a C. Fantastic artwork on this one. I love that art. 5-track demo. Filthy guitar sounding death metal from Estonia. It's gory, straightforward, mid-paced, slimy sounding stuff. Like an Estonian mix of Leprophiliac and old Baphomet, Banished, those kinds of bands. The bass has a real nasty twang to it, which I thought was really cool. The second track on here has a riff that's straight out of, it's got to be said, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and I was not expecting that one. Very amusing. Very well produced for a debut demo. It sounds like it was written in 1992. Total meat and potato stuff, and you know me, I quite like my meat and potatoes death metal. Good aesthetics on this one as well. The band seemed to quickly come and go, sort of around from 2019 to 2021, and just released this demo, and that was it really. So yeah, Koffin. They've nailed themselves into the coffin by the sounds of it. Next up, we've got Profane Congregation, Apocalyptic Visions. Very, very satanic, raw, one-man black metal band from 2010 to 2020 is when they kind of lived. This is the album from 2016, originally released only on cassette. As I said, super raw, cold-sounding, screeched banshee vocals, repetitive riffs, pretty sloppy drums, it's got to be said. They're almost always blasting. But they and the music do benefit from the rare occasion that things do slow down. It all feels like sort of very early Judas Iscariot material. You remember that early stuff where the drums were not so great? Get that vibe here. Also something like Sargeist's Tyranny Returns demo. Very early and primitive stuff. You know, they're sort of going for atmosphere over super technical prowess, you know, whatever. But it's good. I quite like this one. As I said, Finnish, raw black metal from 2016, Apocalyptic Visions from Profane Congregation. Next up we have Ulven with Death Rites Upon a Winged Crusade. Say that a few times fast. US black metal, full length from 2018, this one. It opens with sort of your standard spooky intro, backmast speech, church bells, that kind of interesting stuff. Then into some blistering riffs, thundering drums. It's all good. The vocals here sound pretty poisoned. I thought that was a good word to describe it. Very gravelly, snarled. Somebody's just choking on something poisonous. Mixes it up with like a D beat and double kicks into the mix. Very dark and sinister sounding, it's got to be said. Plenty of moments of acoustic guitar, melodic riffs over some slower, real heavier passages. There's an 8-minute long track on here called Night of the Long Knife. I think that's probably the best example of this. Whereas the 5th track on here called Winged Promise, that's probably the most savage one, really kind of just straight and full of force. It's a real varied mix here for black metal of this kind. Dissonant riffs, sometimes sounding like Satyricon, Nemesis Divina. You know, it's a mix of styles here. Perhaps coincidentally, I hear a lot of Queensland band Astrial in these riffs. I'd say it's coincidental, but there you go. Ulven, Death Rites Upon a Winged Crusade. The next one was a particular highlight for me out of this package. This one is Ancient Flame, Tyrant Blood. Very large, bombastic black metal from 2019. One-man band again, from the US. This has got the guitarist of Crypt Sermon on it, so, you know, a bit of a lineage there. Strong elements of Hammerheart era battery in its epicness. very, very Viking longboat style riffs, repetitive driving stuff, just, big oars kind of thing. Yeah, that's what you're getting with this one. It's got some background choir vocals, add a bit of subtlety to it. Big thundering floor toms that take away any subtlety, absolutely, just brutal toms. Or sort of like, maybe they're like orchestral drums, I don't know what they are, but it sounds like thunder, just booming stuff. It does often still go full throttle black metal. It reminds me of something like Nazul's Iconoclast. So yeah, a bit of a mix there. See some raging black metal and your Viking metal stuff. And like I said, one of the highlights for me, this one, really, really good. Ancient Flame, Tyrant Blood. This was another particularly good one with another strong lineage. This is Luctum with Ashes of the Titans. US black metal again, sometimes atmospheric black metal. This one features members of Enigmatum, Sempiternal Dusk, and a former member of Uada. So, yeah, quite a few members there across bands that you probably have heard of. 7 tracks of very cold black metal, some very triumphant sounding riffs in this. I think that's why it really appealed to me. For the most part, it sort of stays in a mid-pace, has a real tinny lead guitar, but the bass and the rhythm guitar, very rumbly, and there's some dissonance in there as well. Vocals are kind of echoey, screamed thing. Lots of ambient use of keyboards, which was a nice touch. The third track on this one moves at a more pace to it, has a bit of a necro cult kind of thing, cult with a KVLT. The fourth track, though, that was more solemn. It has some dark piano in it. Very nice piece. The fifth track, though, that one, which is Theriomorphic Divinations of Heres Nocturna. Oh yeah, that was an emotional standout for me. I felt some things with that particular track. Very draining riffs on that. And the album finishes in a similar way. I think this was a really, really good debut here. There's the band there. It's a 5-piece. And like I said, members from all other bands that you probably heard of. Luctum, Ashes of the Titans. Good stuff. This one was really interesting. I really liked how this one played out. This is Morbid Winds. And oh my god, brace yourself. The black corridors of the abyssal depths of existence opened their gates. Yeah, this is a single 35-minute track album. One track for 35 minutes. It's outrageous. Polish band from 2021. They're only full length so far. Drums and guitars, including the bass, by names Diabolizer and Blood Whip, both from the band Maud Hell, who I'd not heard of before. The vocalist, his name is Cryptic Lust, rounding out the 3-piece with deep, booming growls. They were very, very suitable in this. But overall, this is very primitive sounding black metal, very ugly sounding black metal, very early days sounding black metal, stripped back. Look at those aesthetics. Very primitive sounding. Look at that logo. Tells you what you're going to get. Sort of mid-pace, sort of Celtic Frost with like Panzerfaust, Dark Throne era kind of riffs in it. You know what I'm talking about? Also some of that sort of rolling double kick, very simple riffage like on Hives Lasset Taros. All early black metal on display here. Plenty of weight in the tom drums, lots of splashy cymbals. I like the sound of those. And the song, because it is just one song, it changes up quite a bit, remaining interesting through the 35 minutes. So you could arguably carve it into multiple tracks if you wanted to, because it does change up quite a bit. But it's quite a feat for this pretty intentionally raw sounding black metal that something so repetitive would retain my interest for 35 minutes, but it really, really did. No interludes, just 35 minutes of straight ahead black metal with a few different sub-styles on display. So yeah, it's all primitive, it's all raw, but it's all really good stuff from Morbid Winds. Next up, we've got 2 from the same band, some very filthy Italian death metal here. First one, this is Congenital Deformity, Progenies of the Cemetery. I love that title, Progenies of the Cemetery. This is, again, in that leprophiliac style of sort of nasty, loose, gory, autopsy kind of stuff. The production does remind me, though, which was interesting, of like a Lymphatic Phlegm demo. But it's more chunky death metal, not drum machine grind. But it had that sound to it. Very loose, jangly bass, the guttural vocals almost like wind blowing. Go listen to a Lymphatic Phlegm early demo and you know what I'm talking about. but it's sort of more D-beat, slower, that autopsy groove. Short to the point, 16-minute demo, quite good this one. On this 2019 demo, it's a one-man band by Michelle, I'm not too sure, Labrati. But we follow it up in 2020 with this one, which is Sacrifice. This band's now a two-piece at this point, with Michelle, I'll go with Michelle, farming out some of the duties to Christian with a K, and it's made the world of difference. This is so much more a well-honed release. The second demo, it's just up from the first demo. It's as simple as that. It's like what you want with a band. You want their second demo to be an improvement over the first one. It's exactly what's happened here. More articulated songs, better riffs, approaching something like Amorphous' Privilege of Evil demo or EP. That's the kind of ballpark I get here. But with added guitar solos and leads, they weren't on the first demo. They're definitely on this one. A much more full sound, I think Congenital Deformity is going to be one of those bands to check out. Like, keep an eye out. I think one day they're going to end up on, maybe a slightly bigger label, and you might get a vinyl full-length album, perhaps, from Congenital Deformity. So, Progenies of the Cemetery and Sacrifice. Definitely check these guys out. We've got two albums again from the one band. This is Forbidden Tomb. The first one here is The Prospector, followed also by Templum Emporum. Indonesian one-man black metal band, both from 2020. Both of them sort of start off with ambience, chimes, that kind of thing, and then it's ultra raw riff. It is like proper raw black metal here. This is all lo-fi, it's all treble, it's all noise, there's no bass, there's no subtleties. It is primitive and raw lo-fi black metal, grim, harsh, simple, straightforward structures. Like, obviously Transylvanian Hunger was the template, but then even more raw. If you're into that sort of raw black metal scene, the stuff of the last, say, 5 years or so, the stuff that was born out of lockdowns, you're probably going to like Forbidden Tomb, so check it out. Next up, we have a Hungarian band. They're just known as Oz, that's O-S, and this is Stations Viae Mortis. Cracking out the Latin today. Like I said, Hungarian death metal band playing sort of a Dead Congregation style, very dark and booming, cleanly produced, got some well-articulated riffs, very snappy drums, very clean, audible bass sound on this one. 4 tracks on here ranging from sort of 6 to 10 minutes, so you get that length. The band sort of plays in that mid to slower pace, very doomy, death doomy. The second track though, which is some more Latin, Confraternatus Mortis et Hominis. That's sort of more Stockholm Swedish sounding, but in like the Unleashed way of things, not so much Entombed. Then it goes back to that established dark death metal style, I think, after that one. Bit more speed in the track with some blasting. It reminds me a little bit of Morbid Angel Covenant. And very sludgy, crawly sound. It all ends with a female opera soloist over the noise, which was unexpected, I've got to say. And the fourth track goes out in a very crushing disembowelment fashion that is called Advenientia. Failing with the Latin today. Yeah, ending in a very crushing death doom, funeral doom style. So it's all over the map here with this one from Oz, Stations Viae Mortis. Next up, we have, again, 2 albums from the same band. I've been seeing this name around quite a bit. A crushing 2-piece death metal band out of the LAs. This is Obsidian Hooves. This one is Morbidity. And this is the follow-up, Illuminating Void. I particularly like the Morbidity cover. Really, really nice stuff on that one. The drummer vocalist is from Occult, which is a band I really like. And he's in a million other bands as well. Very prolific guy. The guitarist seems to only be an Obsidian Hooves, so maybe this was sort of his debut band, I'm not too sure. Very much has a sort of plug in and play approach. Just plug it in, record it straight. Very sort of analog, very organic, no processing going on here. Which is, kind of the similar sound that you get from Occult, but this is played more with that looseness of something like in Koffin. Lots of guitars ringing out to feedback. Speedy overall, with plenty of pockets of slower groove. Vocals on this first album, they were interesting, sort of like choked and hoarse. I actually was reminded of Killjoy from Necrophagia in some of his earlier stuff. But then you go into this second album, Illuminating Void. That has more focus to it than Morbidity. And I assume the band's just improved their craft a bit more, but the vocals are a bit more guttural, sort of standard guttural on that one. But interesting stuff. Occult, very loose death metal, dispatching any modernity at all. This is just old sounding death metal. And good stuff here from Obsidian Hooves, Morbidity and Illuminating Void. This was another particular highlight for me, the self-titled EP from Putrid Tomb, appropriately named band out of California, very putrid death metal. Sounds like it was raised from a tomb, though it seems unfortunately the band has already returned to it, a bit like Koffin returning to their Koffin. It seems these guys broke up after this EP, which is a shame. It's a little bit thrashy. He's got that jangly bass again. The opening track on this one, Heaven's Gate, starts with a speech from that particular cult Suicide video, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. The riffs have sort of the Bleeding era Cannibal Corpse. Very straightforward early US death metal sound here. The leads have a bit of, probably just my ears picking this up, but I heard like early Impaled on some of those leads, which was nice because I'm a big fan of Impaled. The whole thing took a swim though in like a very nasty autopsy swamp. It's putrid tomb. 5 tracks, 21 minutes. The fourth is a short acoustic piece called Comatose Soul Psychosis. The last track was quite interesting because that gets very improv, almost jazzy. It does feel like they were kind of making it up as they were going. That's the self-titled track, Putrid Tomb. Drums and bass going off doing their own thing. It was an interesting track. So yeah, it's a solid little EP and a real shame that these guys broke up. So there you go. Putrid Tomb with Putrid Tomb. Gone back to their tomb. Next one is some very slow and crushing death doom out of Mexico with another great logo and a very cool cover. This is Khasmata with eerie, dismal gateways. It's got some sort of sporadic, faster sections as well, but this is really death doom. The 2022 demo, and it's produced damn well for a demo. 3-piece with 3 songs over 26 minutes. So there's your death doom. You get the length. The vocals are super guttural, all encompassing on this. Big incantation, like at their slowest. Incantation at their absolute slowest. Riffs that drone out, just done, that kind of thing. The second track has a bit more of a slithering and sinister beginning. Got some great titles on these too. That track is Expelled into the Gloomy Nest of the Liquescent Seed of Shub Niggurath. Oh, some of these titles today. But yeah, look, Shub Niggurath, it's the kind of slimy death metal you're getting here. Very occult sounding stuff. The ending, it slows down to a bit more of a funeral doom pace. It gets even slower. And that continues into the third track, which is pretty much just a funeral doom track. So yeah, and I dig their logo. Very nice and scratchy looking. Khasmata, that's spelt with a K and a H. Eerie, dismal gateways. This next one was fun, similar to that Putrid Tomb. Rancid Amputation. Look at that cover. I like that one. Kind of amateur kind of thing. Good fun. Rancid Amputation. Vile Human Taste is the name of this one. Straight ahead, OSDM, groove-based death metal. One-man band from Portugal, 5 tracks, 20 minutes. Hitting that old chunky US death metal sound, again of that Baphomet and Banished. Production and the general approach fits something like I thought of Necrophagia's Harvest Ritual. Very, sort of precise sounding for something called Rancid Amputation. No leads, no solos, none of that nonsense. It's just chunky death metal. There's faster moments, but instead of blasting, it's sort of like really fast double kicks combined with staccato riffs, like which was actually like Fear Factory. I was not expecting that sound. So yeah, that was very interesting. Fear Factory of all bands getting that kind of pattern into this filthy death metal. Rancid Amputation, it does what it says on the tin. It's rancid and you're going to want to cut your own limbs off. Vile Human Taste. Next one was also really good, and oh man, I love the band name and the album name on this one. Solarcrypt, all one word, rot in the multi-dimensional sewer. Yes, that's golden for me. Another one-man band, this time from Costa Rica, 2020 demo, pretty ugly stuff. And as it suggests, Solarcrypt took a bath in the sewer for this one, absolutely. Sluggish, raw death metal, big bottom end to it. The bass sounds like electric fence wire. You've got to listen to this bass on this thing. Deep, reverbed vocals as well. Big sort of Rotravor vibes to this. 4 tracks in 22 minutes. And, there's actually quite a lot going on here. They're sort of 5-minute length tracks. It's all filthy, but there's a lot going on. I played this one a couple of times through, and I was getting actually more out of it each time, which, for something called Rot in the Multi-Dimensional Sewer with this kind of logo, you kind of think it might just be straightforward and gory, but there was a bit more going on here, folks. Solarcrypt, Rot in the Multi-Dimensional Sewer. Next up, we have a compilation album from one band. It has 2 of their demos on it. This is Necroblasphemy, Necroblasphemic Rites, and The Crypt. We'll talk about the 2 things on here in a moment. Dark and brutal death metal out of Germany. Very much a bludgeoning attack. Very little subtleties in this one. Evil, chunky sounding. I got some sort of vomitory vibes to this. There's hints of Infesta, Funebrarum. Even more straightforward though, I'd say. Lots of constant double kicks, which is nice. I like my double kicks. Mostly pretty big riffs, though there is some sort of faster stuff as well going on here. And this is their 2 demos. So Necroblasphemic Rites from 2022 and just one called Crypt from 2019. The later demo, the 2022 one, is superior, but only just. It's pretty consistent stuff across both of them. The first one's pretty savage and might have a bit more Morbid Angel influence on it. This band haven't released a full length yet. It does say on their Facebook that they are, and I'd be looking forward to it. So there's the other cover there for Crypt. So Necroblasphemy with Necroblasphemic Rites and Crypt. If you keep your ear to the ground in the underground death metal scene, you might have heard this name come up in the last year or so on Rotted Life. And this is Noroth with It Dwells Amongst Us. Thick, down-tuned death metal from 2020. Again, another fantastic artwork on this one. These guys are from Seattle. Chunky riffs, sort of like really chunky, like fluids, mixed with a dozen maggot stomp bands. This is pretty knuckle dragging, caveman circle pit stuff, right? But there's a bit of an assortment of riffs on here. Okay, it's not just basic stuff. There's actually quite a collection of decent riffs going on. It's not all chugga single riff stuff. The pace does change from sort of slow to mid pace throughout. A bit of death doom riffs come in as well. And I mentioned Rotted Life because in 2021 their full-length follow-up came out on that label, which has a really cool cover art as well. Got a bit of press time, I remember. But this one is the 2020 album, It Dwells Among Us. And I'd suggest dwelling with Noroth because this is good stuff. Next up, we have a split from 2 raw black metal acts. This is the split between Celestial Sword and Erzfeynd. That's spelled Erzfeynd, Erzfeynd. Celestial Sword are out of the US. They've done a couple of full lengths and a lot of splits. And they bring 6 tracks onto this split release. Musically, sounds like sort of old Emperor demos, old Burzum atmospheric era. Some of the Polish scene in there, some of the new bands like Evil Feast. All this is good stuff. The vocals, they are quite ungodly screeches. You are either going to love these vocals or you are not going to love these vocals. I think it's quite a binary decision on here. But musically, it's really, really good. The other side of this one is Erzfeynd, and they've got a lot more weight to their sounds. It's a heavier sounding thing. Has 3 longer tracks from them on this, and more traditional vocals, which you might be thankful for. Pretty standard black metal kind of vocals. I'm hearing the first couple of Nagelfar. It's Nagelfar from Germany with an E in it. Not that unsurprising, given that they are from Germany. More, sort of fully formed songs on this with lots of variety to them. Strange pairing, I think, with Celestial Sword. them being far more raw. But I'd say Erzfeynd are a bit more traditional black metal. It's got some sort of folky sections like old Ulven, which was very nice. They got a little bit more avant-garde after this split, from what I understand. Not so much so, but just a little bit more. And it's got a little bit more going on their latest full length, which I checked out as well because I was pretty interested. I wasn't huge on the Celestial Sword side of this, but I'm really digging the Erzfeynd. So there you go, nice little split here from the two bands. Next up, we have another split of raw black metal, two bands here, Vermisst and Condescendance. Vermisst, for starters, are a three-piece band from Poland. Some pretty strange sounding music in these three tracks. There's like a thin lead guitar in the background, and then this very strong sort of soundscape layer over the top of the guitar, sort of astral noises and spacey kind of things going on over the top of the guitar for the entire thing. It's treated like another instrument that's permanently there. It's very interesting. The drums are way back in the mix and barely audible. It's really this guitar and this strange ambience on top of it. The vocals are in like a sort of gruff, shouted style, so shouted and spoken kind of thing. I can't say I've really heard much that sounds like Vermisst. This is a pretty unique mix. That ambient, spacey thing on top of the guitars. Yep, I don't think I've heard something like that mixed this way before. So I'm not too sure if that's unique to just this split or if they do that all the way on their other releases, but very interesting. Condescendance, though, they're a French two-piece, members shared with many other French raw black metal acts, and they're quite well matched to go with Vermisst, I think. Similar in approach, very raw, very ugly. It's got some oddities again in their mix, rumbling and very bass heavy. The vocals seem sort of intentionally out of time with the music, like they're almost improvised to a degree. Or it's very interesting how that was done. If you eat up the rawest of the rawest black metal, then you might want to check out this split between Vermisst and Condescendance, because they're just trying to express something a little different on both of their sides here. So yeah, interesting stuff. Vermisst and Condescendance. Last up, we have a one-man, a very occult black death metal band out of Germany. This is Hamvak with Maelstrom of Abhorrent Incantations. Born out of the ashes of a black metal band called Solace. A very ominous intro piece here with deep chanting and some sort of like, I don't know if it's guitar noise or white noise going on behind it. Then it's straight into tight blasting drums with some very fast fills. Technical high gain guitar. Now that was the thing I found very interesting. That 7 or 8 string guitar tone that you get, the bass seems to be using a similar style. You have like booming echoey gutturals as well. It's slightly like a more tech prog, I don't want to say metalcore at all, but that kind of production approach to something like Lucifer. Okay, so it's pretty interesting. Breakdowns with dissonant lead guitar and thundering drums. It's pretty interesting. That razor wire guitar tone, though, is what is really standing it apart here. It's kind of mid-paced, and I'm going to say pretty cavernous sections here. But man, that guitar tone, I can't get over how it's mixed in here. As the album suggests, this is really a maelstrom of abhorrent incantations. It is just a maelstrom. And there's the inside there. So, yeah, Hamvak. And that's the last one we're going to take a look at here from Morbid Chapel Records. Big thanks to Waldemar for sending this package to me. I've had a lot of fun going through such a eclectic mix here of death metal, black metal, bit of doom, funeral doom, raw black metal, Viking stuff thrown in here. Listening to it all pretty much back to back, 23 CDs of it. It's been a good ride. So thanks again for sending it this way. If you want to check out the stuff from Morbid Chapel, the links will be in the description below. You can buy directly from their store, but I believe it's distributed widely, so go check it out. And thanks for watching. Do like, subscribe, check out this guy, check out this guy. I'll see you next time.